Hope everybody's doing good today. Today is Thursday, so going to be doing the daily take again. Something that I started there last year. Did a few of them, and then just didn't stick. Just didn't stick with it. Apparently, I swore at Siri. So going to be getting back to it. This is essentially me discussing things that are real estate related. Some of the things that I like to discuss are going to be not so real estate related in other forms, but this is going to be a place where I can just put out little bits of information that may answer some questions that people have, whether they're first time buyers or they've done it 3 or 4 times. So today, the question is basically how long is my offer good for? If you're a buyer and you're making an offer to a seller, how long is that offer good for? Because we know that an offer can't just be good forever, or else somebody could just take it 3 months later after you've already bought a house. So how long is it good for, and how long does the seller have to tell me if they are accepting or countering or declining my offer? This is what's called irrevocability. So when you're writing your offer, it's right in the standard forms, but let's just say you're doing something that's not within the standard forms. Not sure why you would do that, but any offer is going to have a time frame on it. So the usual irrevocability timing is between 24 and 48 hours. This was certainly more true, I think, a couple years ago. As the market heated up, we started to see faster and faster irrevocable timings, just because it was so much more competitive and buyers were not willing to wait that long. And a lot of times a shorter irrevocable period was also brought forth with a strong offer. So you can make an argument that even though they weren't willing to give a longer irrevocability, they were providing the seller with a very, very good offer in a lot of these situations that I've seen. Like I said before, the irrevocable timing is between 24 and 48 hours, typically. Some of the atypical situations that we will see, obviously one being if the seller is going to hold off on offers and they've set a date that they would like to wait until to review offers. Another would be something like an estate sale. And you can look in the listing. Sometimes there'll be information, or your realtor will be able to get that information for you to say, yes, the seller requires 48 hours or a little longer, or the seller cannot deal with it until Friday at the earliest because the executors or something are out of town, or whatever. Sometimes the same situation could happen with a bank sale, right? Where the bank, the person at the bank that's handling the sale can only do so certainly within the business week and at certain time frames. So when you're at time of offer, something to think about is certainly irrevocability. How long you want to leave that to allow the seller. I think the first thing I always try to have my buyers think about is what does the seller, or what can the seller do? So one of the things that I recommend is that we touch base with the seller's agent, which we do normally for a number of other things anyway, just to see what their availability is. Are the sellers in town? Are they out of town? Every situation is different. Are they on shift? Are they shift workers and on opposite shifts that maybe they require a little bit extra timing to just be able to talk about it before they do something? Are they able to do things with DocuSign, or are they someone that doesn't use DocuSign and therefore needs some more time? So some of these details are things to consider, things that I think whenever you're entering a negotiation, you want to have the best, put your best foot forward in terms of working with the other person. You are working together to hopefully come to a common solution that the seller wants to sell and the buyer wants to buy. We understand that there's things that push each other apart in terms of price and closing date and stuff that need to be negotiated, but at the end of the day, both people want the same thing, and so I like to start off on a good note by trying to at least work within the confines of the seller's schedule if possible. The next thing to consider is, are you willing to give the seller extra time to deal with an offer in a competitive market, right? You've gone to see this house, you've made your mind up, this is the house for you and your family, and now it comes time to take the necessary steps to try to get that house. The typical time frame, like I said before, is between 24 and 48 hours, but if you give, sometimes if you give that long, you're leaving the door open for someone else to come in and make an offer and potentially add offers to the situation, and then all of a sudden you're in a multiple offer situation that means that you may or may not get that house, and it also means that you may or may not, you will probably pay more. So something to consider. Again, you want to try to walk that fine line between being accommodating to the seller and protecting your own interests. So it's not a one size fits all. There are some tips and tricks and stuff that I think are kind of smart. I have seen agents that'll just send an offer in without even asking what the seller's availability is or what the agent's availability is. That's another thing that's very important, is sometimes an agent is booked solid with other work matters or personal matters that would mean that they can't deal with the offer within the next 4 hours. And I think that we all need to realize that we do live in the real world, and those are very, very important details to remember. So I think that it's just important to always at least try your best to work with the other party. But again, you do need to protect yourself, and you do need to take the necessary actions to try to get the house at the best price that you can. So hope this was informative. Not that there's not a recipe necessarily for a one size fits all recipe that's going to say, do this every single time, give them 1 hour every time. To be honest, you're going to piss people off. So like I said before, I hope this helps. A little bit rambly, more than likely, which is probably my fault, but I still hope that it helps. And any questions that you might have, feel free to send them in, and I'll be glad to answer them on the next ones. So thank you, and hope you're having a good day.